The problem that many Italian operators are facing today is related to those users who are not paying the bills and how to disconnect them from the network. What should we do? Disconnect them from the network? Disable their account? Block their IP packets? Unfortunately, all those techniques lead to a call to the customer service complaining that the service is not working and asking for the internet to be fixed as soon as possible. The idea in the DUNE proposal is not to disconnect the customer from the network. The user's CPE is still connected. Indeed, we create a private fake internet where we divert all the packets of the customer. Here we have one web server showing a page with a message where we explain why the service is not available and that the customer must pay some invoices. From the customer care point of view, we already gave a valuable information to the customer, who can choose to pay or stay out of the real internet. We use the SDN-NFV technology because it is perfect to isolate users while keeping high performances. The DUNE experiment can be seen as a network slice where we put those users that are not paying for the service, and that exposes only one private web server. For the SDN part, we use the FOKUS OpenSDNcore to implement our idea. In our architecture, when the customer is not in the blacklist, the packets are normally sent to the internet. When we put the customer in the blacklist, the packets are diverted to a fake DNS that is resolving all the websites with a local web server showing the suspension web page. In order to isolate the customer, we use the FOKUS OpenSDNcore API, developing specific commands to be used via the command line interface. For the experiment deployment, after logging in the experiment portal, we uploaded our CSAR file with a description of the testbed, which is made of 5 virtual machines in the FOKUS SDN testbed. We also allocated in the CSAR file the OpenSDNcore for the SDN part. We will use the OpenSDNcore API to tell the SDN switch to add or delete the customer to the blacklist. At the end of the deployment process, we get the DUNE experiment OpenSDNcore tab with the virtual machines ready for the experiment. Obviously, we also need to do the setup for our commands to talk with the SDN core. So, we copy the SDN token from the experiment portal in the configuration file. The tables will be also copied in the configuration file for the commands, but we will use only the table 59 for our purposes. In our experiment, each virtual machine has 2 IP addresses. One is the private IP and the other one is the floating IP. We are using the private IP because the packets from that IP are intercepted by the OpenSDNcore. For example, for the client, we will use the private IP in all our commands in order to add or delete the customer to the blacklist. The KPI 1 will measure the time to fully execute the policy after a user has been added to the blacklist. That is, all packets will be blocked. This KPI must be less than 90 seconds to be achieved. The second KPI is similar to the first KPI, but this time we have to delete a customer from the blacklist. Again, the measured time must be less than 90 seconds to achieve the KPI. The third KPI is more related to the customer perception of what happens when the customer is added to the blacklist. Indeed, we want to measure the time needed to show the Pay the Bill page after the customer has been added to the blacklist. For this KPI, the time measured must be less than 20 seconds. For each KPI, we prepared a video. The videos for KPI 1 and KPI 2 are similar. We have only to measure the time to add and delete the user to the blacklist. For the first 2 videos, we use the Lynx web browser so we can focus on the measurements of the experiments. For the third video, we used Firefox, so we can focus on the point of view of the customer and we can measure the time needed for the third KPI. The first video shows the time needed to add a customer to the blacklist. In the top window, we have the terminal of the customer who can surf the web. We are using the links browser to visit some websites, and here we show that we are in the real internet. The customer can gather content from the internet. In the bottom window, we have another terminal where we can send the command to isolate the customer. Now we show the time needed to complete the whole operation. We show in the top window the local time on the customer's terminal via the date command. Typing the isolate command in the bottom window, we are able to put the customer in the blacklist. If we go back to the customer's terminal, we show that the customer now can only see the notification page and he cannot surf the real internet. As it can be seen in the top window, the whole operation has been completed in less than 15 seconds, and therefore we achieved the first KPI. The second video is very similar to the first video. First, we show that the customer is in the blacklist. Then, we show the local time in the customer's terminal in the top window. Now, we apply the free command in the bottom window so that the user can now surf the real internet. If we go back to the customer's terminal and we open the browser, we see that the customer can now surf the real internet again. The task has been completed in around 20 seconds. We achieved the second KPI. In the third video, we will show the time needed for the web page to appear into the customer browser after we isolate the customer into the fake internet. This time, we will use the Firefox browser for the customer so that we have a more realistic estimation of the time needed to notify the customer that the account has been suspended. Again, we start loading a web page from the real internet. Then we apply the isolate command and we reload the same web page. After reloading the page, the customer will see the account suspension web page. In around 15 seconds, we have completed the task. The third KPI has been achieved. The customer blacklist idea worked as expected, and we can suspend a customer with a better result instead of cutting him out of the network. Indeed, we improved the customer care process with a clear message of account suspension. We used the FOKUS OpenSDNcore to implement our idea, as it better supported our experiment. All KPIs have been achieved.